Why are we doing a Valentine's Day episode? It's well past Valentine's Day.
You people are all so hung up over expiration dates. Huh? Think about all the love that went into all these films. Just because it's
Valid.
no longer the season, we can't talk about it?
It's still February.
Valid. I mean, we
I
didn't
mean,
talk about Groundhog Day on Groundhog Day, so whatever.
we could have
Yeah.
though.
Anyway, today we are going to be talking about Chungking Express and Fallen Angels. Mostly Chungking Express by Wong Kar-wai. You guys got any
Nope.
news? No news? I got no news either.
Not really, no.
Let's just jump right in.
All right. Cool. So, Wong Kar-wai, we've talked about him before with In the Mood for Love. That was a movie he actually made after these two. These are sort of the two movies that kind of really blew him up in the international space. I guess some interesting behind the scenes. So I don't know if you guys saw the Tarantino thing I sent you guys. We kind of covered a bit of this before, but basically, Wong Kar-wai was in the middle of making this big like epic, and he basically just kind of hit like a dead end in the editing process. So he decided to basically like clear up his mind. He would work on this in the meantime, and just to like get something out there, get something out of his system, and yeah, and then basically he wrote Chungking Express has two stories, but he actually wrote a third one. But he decided the third one he would just kind of cut and add some stuff to it and then make into another movie, Fallen Angels. So Fallen Angels is basically like it's kind of meant to directly it's its own little movie, but it's like sort of a sequel, basically.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump ahead and real
It's
quick.
like a spiritual successor in a way.
I never saw Fallen Angels. I didn't have time to, unfortunately.
A lot of
So that third story that was meant for Chungking Express was developed into its own film, is what you're saying?
basically, yeah. Although they like add stuff, so like Fallen Angels is also kind of two stories intertwining. Well, not really intertwined, but it's also two stories. They just kind of, rather than it being like part one and part two, they just kind of intertwine it a bit more in Fallen Angels.
There's a few references here and there, but you can watch Fallen Angels without having seen Chungking Express and vice versa.
Yeah.
Are the locations the same?
Really? I mean, they both take place in the same city, but it's a city, and cities are pretty fucking big, so
Okay.
I will say though, interesting thing you mentioned that, Patrick, because Fallen Angels was the one that I actually saw first.
Really?
Back when I like got into these movies, I saw Fallen Angels first because that just kind of seemed like something I would like more, just because like the way people describe it, I was like, yeah, I feel like that'd be a good one. And kind of funny because I actually do like Chungking Express just a little bit more. It's like pretty damn close, but yeah. So I guess a brief little rundown on the stories. Actually, here's what I figured out. Since we're covering like effectively this is like the two movies. There's basically just like four stories between them. I figured why don't we just talk about each story kind of individually, if that works with y'all.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so story number 1, Pineapple Express.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I call it anyway.
The first story we basically follow. Actually, both stories basically. Almost all these stories follow like cops and criminals. It's just we don't actually really see them do their job. It's just kind of like an incidental element to them. But there's this one cop who got dumped by his girlfriend on named May on April 1st, and because it was April 1st, he kind of thought he was getting punked a bit. So to verify his earnestness, he chooses to wait for a month before really moving on. And every day he buys a tin of pineapples with the expiration date of the 1st of May, and because May enjoys pineapples, and May 1st is his birthday. There's a lot of like clear symbolic elements going on there. But
Imagine eating canned pineapples for a living.
I mean, the dude ate 30 in one night.
He threw up afterwards.
He did. I mean, that much pineapple is not good for you.
Yeah, that's the first character. The second character is a woman in a blonde wig who's basically trying to survive this underworld drug smuggling operation. And basically they meet up on May 1st, pure coincidence, and yeah, they just kind of have like a moment, and they kind of just go on their own way. Really, it's kind of an interesting like element, because like there isn't really an ending to it. We just kind of like just follow these characters doing their own things. They interact this one time. They have a, I guess a nice night together, and then yeah, they kind of just that's the end of it, which is unconventional, but that's kind of why I like that. This is the quirky, I guess, side of the film. Yeah, I guess what do you guys think about?
Jumping into this
Yeah.
film, I did not know it would be two stories in one. I thought it would be about the guy and the blonde girl.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised when it suddenly switched to a different story
Yeah,
midway
same
through.
here. I thought it would just be about those two. And then I see like they called this one cop 663 and I'm like, "Okay, is it the same guy?" Wait, no, it isn't. What happened to the other guy? Where is he?
Yeah.
I mean, you get used to it, but the shift was so drastic, it caught me off guard.
Yeah, same.
I think,
Yeah.
and I don't know, again, I haven't seen Fallen Angels, but I think having a third story would help cement the idea that these are all separate stories in this one
Yeah.
film. I think just having two loses a little bit of focus.
I mean, 3 is a magic number, rule of 3, all that.
Yeah. I thought I did tell you guys it was basically like Pulp Fiction as a rom-com.
Yeah.
So I kind of
If you did, I don't remember. I'm
I
sorry.
do.
Besides the kind of jarring element, what did you actually think of like the first story, the characters, the humor, the kind of like very offbeat directing style? I'm particularly curious about what you think, Lugia, because you
Yeah,
kind
same
of
here.
Yeah,
you've taken
I like the first story more than the second one.
not really.
I think the fact that it's a police officer and this criminal like kind of getting hitched together for like one night, I thought that was very interesting, but I thought they would go somewhere with that. They don't, and I kind of wanted to see more of it. In fact, I thought that's what the whole movie was going to be about until we switched to the other cop having his own problems. I'm like, "Oh, okay, well I guess that's all we get."
Yeah, same here. Like I was really getting into this first story, and then it stops, and I'm like, oh, okay.
See, the thing is, the open-endedness with the first one is like why I like it, and also this is not just my opinion, but kind of a popular opinion, but most people like the second story more. So I think that's probably why people don't really have an issue with the first one being the way it is, because it kind of just sets the stage of the kind of world you're in, and then the second one's really where like the meat of the story is. Because also the first story is only like a half hour long, like the rest of the movie is like an hour and like 15 minutes you spend on.
Yeah, and that's what confused me. It was the uneven distribution.
Yeah, it wasn't half and half.
I mean, that's not really uncommon in anthology films like this.
Yeah, but again, usually
like,
there's more than 2 stories.
Fair enough, but like again, I'm kind of used to it because like Sin City, there's this one movie I saw called Storytelling. It's also the 2 stories, and like one is only a half hour, and the rest is basically its own little feature. And it's basically like the way I say it, you're getting like the action movie and this kind of like short film in the same world as the actual movie. That's the way I kind of viewed it. That's just a structural thing, like just viewing them each individually. Like the thing I want to know about you, Lugia, was what did you think of like the direction? Because I've noticed like they use this kind of like interesting kind of like slow-mo effect where they kind of like alter the shutter speed a bit. And,
I never liked that effect. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
it
know you
looks
don't like
good.
that
I know
effect.
it's intentional, and probably for the time it worked just fine, but me personally, I hate it. Star
Yeah,
Wars
that's why I was
Episode
gonna
5 did
say
the same thing, and I hate it there too.
Episode 5?
Yeah. Against Shadow Vader.
Oh, okay, all right. Here's the thing. I usually agree with you there in that it doesn't look good. And the reason I was very curious here is because this is like the only movie where I think it actually kind of works, because like the camera angles are so like kind of extreme, and like it has such like a blurred look to it. I kind of I don't know, it worked with me.
No, don't get me wrong. I understand the intention. I just don't think it looks presentable, well, especially from a modern lens nowadays. For the time, again, it probably was fine. To
Oh, no,
me,
for the
it
time, it was,
doesn't
like,
look
just
good.
jarring. For the time, it was just as jarring. It's just like people liked the effect, like because it was always just like an effect, and I don't know. I guess so what I like about it is like slow mo was very much a thing in '94. So him not doing like slow mo, because like you remember In the Mood for Love, right?
Yes.
He was the fuck out of slow mo in that movie. So I'm like, he clearly like not only in the Mood for Love only came out like 3 years after this. So like
This came
the
out
way
in
I like,
94?
this came out in '94, and In the
So
Mood for Love
6
came
years
out
later.
2000, but he started working on the movie like this movie had a really quick turnaround time, but In the
All
Mood
right,
for Love
so
was
so 5 years, give or take.
Yeah, and technology with like cameras, they didn't change at all. He could have absolutely done like the same thing here, and he intentionally didn't. And I think that was because he kind of liked the sort of blurry effect with the visuals there. Ridley Scott did like a similar thing in like Gladiator, which you especially like Ridley Scott in particular has like done like effects. So I feel like you kind of like view it as something dated and not as just something that like the directors actually just like wanted to do and not just like a byproduct of the time. But like, nah, I think all these directors they wanted that look. At least in the '90s. In the '80s, maybe not, but like the '90s, in particular, I feel like the films that use that technique, they do it in a more interesting way. Like in the '80s, I think they were just trying to do slow mo and fail. This one, I think they were intentionally trying to like
I
have that
guess.
really blurred effect. Because this movie and Fallen Angels, they both feel like dreams, but like different kinds of dreams. Like, jumping a little ahead, but my thoughts on the kind of tone here is that they both feel like dreams, but like this one's more of like you like overslept kind of grogginess, where like Fallen Angels is like you didn't get enough sleep kind of grogginess, and that's there's kind of like had a dusk and dawn thing going to it because like even this movie is a lot more like sunny, a lot brighter, and Fallen Angels is a bit more getting 3 a.m. at McDonald's kind of vibe.
If I may ask Lugia a question, I remember one of your complaints about In the Mood for Love was the lack of variety in the soundtrack. Was that circumvented here?
No. California Dreamin'
California
plays
Dreamin'.
5 times in this movie, and it's all in the second story.
I mean,
Yeah,
it is relevant.
Yeah, but
I like the effect. That's the thing. Like, it's got a very music video kind of feel to it. In fact, I'd say the whole movie's kind of feels like a music video in a sort, with the kind of simplistic love element, the distorted visuals, and the again the actual like constant use of not just California Dreamin', but they also used fucking Dreams by the Cranberries a lot. Like they had that like California Dream was like 5 times. They had like Dreams by Cranberries like 3 times.
that one I didn't recognize as much.
It was that more like that ambient track, and it was actually a cover, so like
Ah, okay.
it had the it had like actual like Cantonese. Yeah. I'll just like say the second story, but basically the second story we follow another police officer. He's dealing with a breakup. They're both cops dealing with breakups that meet someone else. The first one where it was just kind of a they just spent a night and that's it, and then he kind of moved on. And this one, it's very much he actually this is the one where they actually do get together. That's what the second story basically is. It's kind of like
Well,
a
define
similar
they.
setup. What do you mean they? Faye and the fucking police officer.
No,
Yeah, but
because
we
he
know
hooks
that,
up with
the
the
audience
stewardess
doesn't. The
at the
audience
end.
doesn't know who we're talking about.
The stewardess was Faye. You didn't realize that, did you, Lugia?
What?
The stewardess at the end of the movie is Faye.
Oh, wait.
It's not his girlfriend from the start. It's Faye. The girl he meets in the fucking convenience store was his ex-girlfriend. The one that literally left off with her new boyfriend. The stewardess at the end of the movie was Faye.
Shit, did I miss a detail?
You missed her face. So yeah. No, the whole point of the ending was basically she went to it's kind of like almost an ironic device, the fact that when they finally get together is like Faye is basically a stewardess and he's like working at the thing, which is kind of like where his relationship was with the like they both changed, and it was like kind of an like ironic thing where he changed into the fucking running the store, kind of like because she wanted him to be with them at the store, and she changed into the stewardess, and he was hung up on the stewardess the whole time. Like it was kind of an ironic device there. But yeah, anyway, I think I said this before. I like the second story more. I actually love both stories. Like among Fallen Angels and Chungking Express, the reason I like Chungking Express more, even though Fallen Angels actually ties together the stories a lot better, and I feel like Lugia would actually like Fallen Angels a lot more, ironically.
I
But
probably should have seen it.
yeah, it's fine. You see it another day. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
But the reason I like Chungking Express more is just I just like the characters in Chungking Express more, you know, because I like the quirky pineapple dude and his like weird philosophy and his kind of like back and forth with a much more stoic lady. And I think Tony Leung and Faye are just like incredibly charming, and like I think maybe the reason why people doesn't like the second half more is just because they're a fucking cute couple, and it's kind of funny with like the whole like. Here's the thing: these movies are very much surreal, even though like they're not like they don't go quite like the direction where Lynch does. And ironically, I think because Lynch goes so far, his movies are a bit more digestible. And here, it's just kind of like it's halfway with the surrealness. So because of that, I feel like that's might be what's throwing you off, but that's what I like about it. But yeah, basically, second story is just slowly develop the police officer and Faye. They just kind of slowly meet. They have this sort of music video quality to it with it constantly playing California Dreamin'. And then eventually the police officer's beat changes, and this time instead of them incidentally meeting, Faye more actively pursues him, actively trying to run to himself. And because the guy is like very clearly depressed, Faye basically because she has the key to his apartment, she just kind of goes in and kind of like does her laundry and like take care of him and shit. Because like I don't know if you noticed this detail, but like the
Puts
second
more
she
fish in his
leaves,
fish tank.
yeah, and like the second she actually leaves, like he kind of notices that like his apartment is kind of like in a mess, and I feel like that's when it kind of clicks with him that like, oh, she was the one that was like kind of helping me secretly throughout this whole time. And that's when I think he finally it kind of shifts from it being this one-sided thing where he just kind of like likes this person but doesn't really think because he's still hung up to being more of a mutual thing. And then basically they set up a date, and Faye gets cold feet, decides to kind of take a year off to decide it, and she kind of does that classic romance thing. It was like, 1 year, meet me again. Although he kind of fucked up with it was raining, so the letter that she sent him got completely blurred, and he couldn't understand it. And then at the end of the movie, they meet again. She's now a stewardess, kind of, and he now owns the store, so kind of ironic device there. And I just really love the last exchange where they're kind of flirting. It was like, oh, this boarding pass you gave me, it's all fucked up. Can I get a new one? And he was like, okay. Nah. He was like, no, but I can. No, I was like, can you tell me where we're supposed to go? And she was like, no, but I can give you a new one. And where do you want to be? And she's like, wherever you are, wherever you want to take me. And I don't know. I think that was kind of a perfect note to end the movie on. So yeah, the way I see it, the movie is really the second story, and the first story is more of just like a supporting element to it. If I ever recommend the Todd Solondz film storytelling, I'm definitely gonna have to tell you guys that it's basically like has the same structure as this movie with like basically an extended prologue, extended standalone prologue, and then the rest of the movie is like the actual picture. Sometimes I feel like I should. Moving on, remind me to actually like prep you guys on these movies because I feel like I don't.
No, it's fine. I think that's supposed to be a part of the experience.
See, not really though, because like even like the VHS of like Chunking Express like had like Tarantino kind of explain that like this movie is a bit unconventional. You're gonna need to go in with like a so like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's a bit like my fault that a lot of the movies I recommend, I feel like they work better on a second go around once you actually like understand what the movie's going for. I mean, yeah, I tend to rewatch these movies, which is probably why, it clicks with me more.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
So anyway, I guess holistically, what did you think of the characters?
Pineapple Guy was fun.
Yeah. I noticed they both kind of had the quirky one and the kind of grounded one dynamic. With the first one, it was the cop that was the quirky one. The cop with the whatchamacallit,
Stewardess.
No, the
no,
blonde lady.
The
story
blonde.
one, yeah, the
In
blonde
this
lady
second
was the
story,
kind of
it's
grounded one, the
reversed.
cop was the goofy one, and then the second story it's reversed, where the cop is the grounded one and the lady is the goofy one.
What made me laugh in the second story is after the cop and the stewardess have sex, he plays with a little toy plane.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
whole new meaning to using toys in bed. Alright, so you fly the plane, he lands it on her back, and they're laughing. I'm like,
He just keeps making plane noises even out of bed.
I think it would be really funny if Catch Me If You Can just repeated that scene like
Yeah.
beat for beat. Yeah, this is very much what I like about this movie is the characters and the mood for love. Nah, but yeah, I feel like I like all four of the core characters, and shit, even like some of the side characters. I thought it was like very funny how Faye's coworkers all knew that she had a massive crush on the dude. So when he came, they would all leave the store just so they could be alone. Like I think that was kind of a cute kind of beat with the side characters. But yeah, mostly what I like is just the kind of music video mood to it. With it's got this kind of dreamlike kind of element to it. Weird cameras, a good use of color, and again the excessive use of needle drops, which was like a benefit to me. Some neat shots too. I really like that one shot where Tony Leung, he's in the bar and he's like putting in the thing, but like you can see in the background that everything's moving faster. What did you guys think of like the color design in particular? Because I feel like that's kind of like the thing that stands out to me the most about Wong Kar-wai's visuals. We mentioned this in The Mood for Love too, like the
Yeah, it
what do you
gave
think of the
me a
color
lot of
palette?
similar vibes to that film.
I got vibes of like Taxi Driver from the neon and the rain and everything.
Yeah, kind of. If you know, Travis Bickle and the lady he was dating, that didn't completely fall apart.
And to jump ahead for a second, Fallen Angels had a lot of Matrix green.
Yeah, I feel like In the Mood for Love, that's his red movie. Fallen Angels was a green movie, and this one kind of dives into like pinks and blues a lot. So yeah, they kind of each have their own kind of like color identity. But yeah. Now to get into Fallen Angels,
All right, this one's all you guys.
this is all you guys, but I actually kind of want to like kind of so Fallen Angels is the best way I can describe is basically like Chungking Express, but put through like a grimier filter. I kind of mentioned the Dusk and Dawn
Basically.
element to it, but like I don't know if you guys are familiar with these genres of music, but like Chungking Express felt like dream pop, and this felt like shoegaze. This is like Radiohead's Amnesiac, and Chungking Express was Kid A. It's like basically just kind of like a darker, kind of fuzzier, grittier version of Chungking Express, at least like tonally. Had some cool uses of like black and white too at some point. I thought Chungking Express had like this surreal, dreamy vibe, but Fallen Angels had like more of a the dreamy vibe of Chungking Express is more of like a pleasant daze, when this one's more of like you didn't get enough sleep and you're kind of powering through the fog. It's almost more of like not really like a good dream, like tone wise, but like the actual like story is kind of fine. But a lot of people actually like I found it funny that you mentioned Taxi Driver, because when I actually read other critics' reviews about this, they compare this a lot to John Woo movies just because of the kind of excessive over the top violence. But also they compared a lot with Scorsese because it's got kind of a Mean Streets vibe with the kind of like tone and music. Like I'd be very curious, Lugia, if I ever recommend Mean Streets, because I kind of want to recommend it because I feel like you're not gonna like it, or it's gonna be the movie that makes you get what I like about all these other movies.
I
Because it's
should
got
I
a
be
similar like
scared?
no, because Mean Streets is basically it's similar to Chungking Express and like the other movies I've done where like the plot's kind of aimless, is more of a mood piece, and they have the soundtrack is incredibly excessive. Like that's the thing, like that's a very common style, honestly, among a lot of like artsier filmmakers. Even Scorsese has that. Tarantino has an element to him, but Scorsese loves plotting a lot, so he kind of like, I guess he kind of balances out a bit more for you, which I mean he balances out for most people too. But yeah, like if I recommended Breathless, Breathless is like the most important film like ever made. It also had a similar thing where the plot's kind of aimless, is more of a mood piece. So a lot of these movies, they just kind of feel like they're taking this classic Breathless and just doing their own take on him. So I feel like maybe one day if you see Breathless, everything would click with you, because is you're basically gonna be like, oh, this is what all these filmmakers are trying to kind of replicate. And yeah. But anyway, that's I'm getting off base. I think Fallen Angels has like a bit of a taxi drive. I mean, it has a bit of a Scorsese vibe because it's kind of like it's kind of directed similar to Mean Streets, but it has like the kind of taxi driver kind of like mood with the city, the kind of like nightlife element, and it kind of has like the kind of like dreamy, but like you stayed up too long kind of dreamy vibe of After Hours and Bringing Out the Dead, which Bringing Out the Dead actually came out the same year as this, which is kind of funny. I'm very curious what you think about that because it's a Nick Cage movie. That's on the list, so we'll talk about that one day. But again, that's mostly the mood, and that's because both these movies to me are just mood pieces where you just kind of explore characters in this city. So like the actual story to me, I don't really like care about it that much, and I don't really even think the directors cared about it that much. But to get into the story, this one has a bit of a tighter structure than Chungking Express because it has two stories, but the two stories are kind of like they intertwine a bit more. The first one we follow a hitman and basically his partner, and yeah, we just kind of like deal with that. He meets this kind of quirky blonde lady, and it's kind of complicated. I don't really know how to explain it, but we basically follow like this kind of like love triangle with like three people, but also you're kind of not. I thought the hitman was a pretty interesting character, and his contrast with the blonde lady was pretty funny. And then you got the second story, which is in the same building as the hitman. We got this ex-convict who kind of escapes prisons on the run from the police, and I think actually like the hitman's like girlfriend or whatever helps him like elude from the police, which is like they kind of tie in a bit more, and they kind of like encounter each other more because like the hitman actually meets the main character of the second story at one point. So this is why I think like maybe you like it a bit more because like Chungking Express, the part one and part two are really disconnected, but part one and part two of Fallen Angels aren't. And then they kind of have like a third part, which is just the ending, but like the ending kind of like ties together the endings of both stories.
Okay.
So much more tightly structured film, but still has a similar like tonal quality to it and a similar element with like really quirky characters. And yeah, honestly, Fallen Angels is like a movie where like there are a lot of people who don't like Chunkin Express who really like Fallen Angels. And I'd say vice versa. I don't actually know if it's vice versa as much. I think it's just like the people that like Chunkin Express, they like it a lot more than the people that like Fallen Angels. So like that's the contrast. So like the people that like Chunkin Express, they really love it, but Fallen Angels I think has like a wider reach. The second story is actually kind of funny because it's this isn't the pineapple guy, but it's the same actor as the pineapple guy, and he has a very similar kind of like quirky element to it. But the key difference is this dude is mute, and also what he does as a job is he basically breaks into stores after they're closed, and then he just kind of operates them like they're still open. So a lot of people that come in there, they don't realize that the store is like that the store is actually closed because they just see this guy working there. So then they like
They don't have a
buy
sign
stuff,
that says store hours.
I mean, I assume he removes them, you know. But he basically just like breaks into these stores and just keeps them running. So like in a way, he's like kind of committing theft, but at the same time, he is working for his money. So you're like, it's like a really kind of
He's
like
forcing
funny
people to
element
buy
it.
the food. He's forcing
Oh, that's
people to
another.
give them their clothes so he can wash them. He forces a guy to get a haircut and a shave at one point.
No, here's actually the funny thing. That's the only dude he does it for. The dude that he forces all that shit in, it's the same guy.
Oh, it's the same guy?
Yeah, it's really funny.
Fuck,
Like,
I'm an idiot.
cause it's kind of funny to me because like he actually has like other customers and he's just normal to them, but this one guy, he's like, nah, you are gonna eat all my fucking ice cream, and he's like, okay, dude, chill. And like the weird thing is, like the guy could like feasibly just say no and leave, but like he's like, it's like almost as like social pressure gag where like the
His
guy's just like, no, come
self-esteem
on,
is
let's do that.
shattered the
Like
moment
he's
he
not
stepped
actually like,
in.
it's like he's not actually like forced, but it's more like the guy just like keeps offering
Very
him ice cream.
insistent. He's
He's just like
incredibly insistent.
incredibly
He'd be a
insistent.
great salesman.
Yeah, he's almost like you ever like visit like your grandparents and like, oh, you got to eat dairy, and like you just don't want to, but they just keep forcing it, so you eventually just relents. That's basically what he does to this one dude. I think it's fucking hilarious. Like that just shit cracks me up because like at one point like they escalate the gag where he's calling his friend. He's like, where the fuck are you? He's like, listen, man, I don't know how to explain, but this guy's like he's just fucking forcing me to eat all this ice cream. And then his friend visits with his entire family. So the dude's just like, oh, you brought friends? Okay. So then he starts giving them all ice cream too and making them eat it. But yeah, at one point he runs into this girl who got dumped and she's looking for his she's basically like this alcoholic who's in a very depressive state looking for this girl that her boyfriend left her for. And this dude just kind of helps her with it. And there's almost this thing where like they kind of have this connection, but it's very clear that this girl, while acknowledging his existence, she kind of almost like doesn't realize that he's there. And at the end of the film, when they like run into each other again, she straight up like does remember him, although they imply like she sobered up and shit. She's also in a stewardess uniform, which I think is just meant to be more of a thematic parallel to Chungking Express than anything like actual like literal in the text. This movie does like take place in the Chungking Mansions, which is the same kind of location. In fact, I'm pretty sure the store at the end, I don't know if you noticed this, Patrick, but I'm pretty sure the store that the guy broke into at the end of the film, that's the same store that like Faye works at.
Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah, there's like a couple of details, but like again, you can watch these two movies as like entirely separate things. They just kind of like they just like take place in the same kind of world basically, but they're their own thing. But yeah, this one, I guess the story isn't as like clear or like as focused as like it's like a weird thing. Where Fallen Angels is like two stories, but it's like two like fully kind of like realized stories. When this one is like, I don't really know how to explain the plot as much, but like it's also a lot more like of a tightly focused kind of script, just because like they tie everything together in like a neat bow. So I don't really know how to get around the story. But yeah. What did you think of the characters, Patrick?
Well, if I could just jump and discuss my thoughts on the whole thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if like you said before, I don't know if I'm in a minority or not. I liked Chungking Express more than Fallen Angels.
I think
I mean,
it's,
they're
it's
both
very 50-50. Like people, they're both widely considered to be masterpieces. It's just like the people that don't like Chunkin Express, there are people that don't like Chunkin Express that like Fallen Angels, and vice versa. And then there's people like me who just like both.
I don't know,
But
the
I
plot,
have a
like you said, the
preference for Chunkin
plot
Express.
in Fallen Angels is kind of all over the place and a bit difficult to follow. It just didn't click with me. But what I did like about this movie was I said within the mood for love, I was a fan of Wong Kar-wai's direction and cinematography. What I like about Fallen Angels is that it's almost like we're watching it from the perspective of like a bug, with the use of wide lens and how the camera flies around all over the place. I thought
Mhm.
that was cool.
I fucking love the motorcycle shots. Those are like my favorite ones.
Also, the guy that he meets on the bus in the beginning, it's literally Ned Ryderson. You can't tell me otherwise. He's an old classmate. He sells insurance. He won't shut the fuck up, and he wants to like meet for dinner one day.
Does he get sacked in the
Other-
face?
No, he doesn't.
Well,
there are other people
not
who get sacked in the
100% a recreation, but close enough.
Fine, 95%.
That's
It was
stretching
actually
it.
really funny. It's actually really funny. Is Groundhog Day came out in '93, Chunkin Express came out in '94, and this came out in '95.
Time is funny. But I do have a question.
Yes.
Just bear with me, Lugia. This is going to come completely out of left field. What was the point of the two masturbation scenes?
I
Here's the weird thing. I saw this movie yesterday, and I for the life of me cannot remember what the fuck you're talking about.
There's a scene in the beginning
did you
where the girl is in the bar. She
Oh,
puts
wait,
a song
okay.
in the jukebox, and then she's on her bed. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
and then that happens again, except she's
and there's
crying at the end of
two.
this one.
You said there's
There's
two
two of
of
them.
them.
She cries after
It's
the
the
second
same
one.
character though. It's meant
I know,
to
yes,
there's
the same
parallel.
character.
Okay, so
What?
first
What
time
was that?
the first time it's I think meant to be kind of represent a kind of real sexual frustration because basically the person at the bar, she's the hitman's assistant, and they kind of like don't see each other, and there's kind of a distance there. So I think that was sort of just meant to kind of show that she is actively actually pining for the dude, and she's very kind of frustrated. And then she's the lady that, and actually chronologically, which I'm sure you might not have actually like caught, but right after the scene is basically when the second story kind of starts, because that's when she helps the hitman's assistant escape from the police. Like she's a hitman's assistant, she helps the mute guy escape from the police. Um, but the second masturbation scene, this was the fucking blondie. Yeah, okay. So I believe the hitman and the blonde girl, blondie or whatever. That's when they meet together, and that second masturbation scene is meant to be kind of like a juxtaposition. And again, she kind of breaks down crying at the end. So it's very much just trying to hammer in the idea that without explicitly saying it, like is more of like a show don't tell thing, but basically like the hitman's assistant is in love with the hitman, and she's really fucking frustrated by the fact that yeah, she can't be with him.
To be completely honest, everything I just talked about is what stood out to me about Fallen Angels. I'm sure if I watched it again, I'd like it more, but for right now, it's just
Yeah,
okay.
here's the thing, like this plot's actually like a lot more like this thought is actually like pretty put together, but it's like one of those things where you need to see it more than once. And also, if you got face blindness, it's really like a bitch because I know it's like you didn't notice that a couple characters were the same people, and like Lugia with Chunkin Express didn't realize some of the characters are the same people. Like that's the thing here, like the characters from story 1 to story 2 in Fallen Needles, they cross over a lot. And like the first time I saw the movie, I even realized they were the same characters either. So I was like, oh shit. Like, and then the second time I was like, oh fuck, they're the same people. So it's like, I think it's like part of the issue is just like
Why do
straight
you
up weird.
keep going for movies that require rewatches in times when we don't have time?
Listen, I just want to introduce you to the movie, and I'm hoping that like get your kind of initial first thoughts, and I hope that maybe one day down the line you're compelled to watch it again, and then it clicks for you. Like I don't know.
Let's give it some time.
One
What?
day. One day I'll come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, I don't know. Next time I'll pick a movie that's like perfectly clear from like, you know, the first watch. And it isn't like a movie that was like, ah, nah, you got to see it again, and then you'll
It's not a
realize.
pick something that isn't a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, obviously, I really like these movies. I like Chungking Express a little bit more. If I'd like to rank the 3 Wong Kar-wai movies we saw, it's like Chungking Express #1 is like just a personal favorite. Although I think In the Mood for Love is probably like the better movie. In the Mood for Love is second, and then Fallen Angels third. And I've seen a couple of his other movies, but yeah, even like among like these are my 3 of his filmography, even like including a couple of the other movies I saw.
Of the 3 that I've seen, I like In the Mood for Love the most, but I do think these 2 are worth the watch.
From the
Yeah.
well,
It-
2
really
I've
rewatch.
seen, In the Mood for Love is definitely the most consistent of the bunch. I think Chungking Express was interesting. It caught me off guard on the first viewing though, so that's why I'm not as like positive about it. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just this was my first time viewing this, and it was a different experience than what I'm used to.
And for a
Yeah.
first time viewing, these films are okay.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's what you're gonna ask for.
Maybe one of these days when me and Lugia watch it again, we'll update our thoughts. But for right now, first impressions, okay.
Yeah.
They're
That
good.
can be another one we can add to the show where like if we ever rewatch a movie that we saw in the podcast and we have new thoughts, we could probably just like briefly do it. Like, yeah, we can like do that, you know, sometime. If you ever, I don't know, have you guys ever rewatched any of the stuff we've talked about here? I've rewatched Pulp
I
Fiction a few times.
rewatched Burn After Reading.
I rewatched Jaws with Lugia, and I did talk about it beforehand.
Yeah.
I said I liked it, like I loved it even more. Like I liked Jaws when I first saw it, but when I watched it again, I'm like, this is fucking
Yeah, in
good. I love it.
IMAX.
Yeah, in IMAX.
That was the shit.
That was
So Lugia,
great.
what did you think of Burn After Reading your second time?
I liked it a lot more the second time. I think the ending was a lot easier to digest instead of it just being, okay, well, what did we learn? Nothing, I guess. Don't do it again. I felt like that worked a lot better after the second time. No, it was just a great movie all around.
One of these days, I'm going
Burn After
to.
Reading is one of those is another one of those movies where it's like it's a complete jigsaw. Like the first time they're kind of like, what the fuck did I just see? And then second
One
time
of
they're
these
like,
days,
oh,
Yep, exactly.
one of these days, I am going to rewatch But I'm a Cheerleader because I felt like I was kind of unfair to it because I had no idea what I was getting into.
That was a long ass time ago.
That was almost 2 years ago, but I just remember watching it. I'm like, what the fuck? And then you told me like this is actual stuff. This is like a joke. This is like a parody of
yeah,
the real
I
thing.
didn't
I'm
know,
like, what the fuck?
yeah, I didn't think you realized it because like I don't know,
I
like
didn't know conversion
remember-
therapy was a real thing. This is my first exposure to it.
okay, yeah. See, my first exposure to it was just I like saw it on the news once, and then like South Park made a parody of it once, where like it was talking about how fucked up this shit is, and because I'm a cheerleader is basically like this conversion therapy thing, but like from the perspective of an actual person that like went there and like it was very much like meant to be satirical. Like you're supposed to think conversion therapy is fucking horrible, and I guess going in blind, you don't realize it's a satire, and you don't like know that it's a satire of a real thing. It's probably really fucking jarring.
Probably rewatch it around like Pride Month or something. Maybe get some of my friends in, see what they think.
Mm-hmm.
But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. God, when I recommend a fucking John Waters movie, I'm gonna have to give so much fucking prefacing for that. Holy shit. Because John Waters is like one of like he's like generally like the most important filmmaker, LGBT filmmaker, and also one of the most important kind of like grindhouse filmmakers. But the thing is that both of those genres are really fucking off-putting. Same with fucking Greg Araki. Although he made a stoner comedy that's pretty accessible, so I could just recommend that one, and then you guys won't be fucking like terrified. 2 thumbs up for me, I guess 1 thumbs up from everyone else.
Yeah.
Check him
sounds
out.
about right.
If you like this movie, check out more Wong Kar-wai stuff, and obviously, I mentioned it before, but I think stuff like Mean Streets and Breathless, and honestly, even like Punch Drunk Love a little bit kind of has like a similar quality to these films. So yeah, I don't know if you like this.
You can call
want-
Punch Drunk Love
stuff
Pudding
like it.
Express.
Yeah. So yeah, if you like instead of pineapples, it's pudding.
The pineapple.
Snack Pack Express.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if you like this movie, check out those. Um,
But I guess Fallen Angels can be Ice Cream Express. It's all connected.
what's all right, now
Blue-
it's time for
it's
the next recommendation.
Bluegia's turn.
All right. So it's got one hint for you guys for this one.
Okay.
It's about time.
Back to the Future?
Bingo.
Hey!
I had a
Yeah,
feeling that would be
that's
too easy.
really fucking convenient too.
So when I say
Um,
Back to the Future, I really mean just the first movie, but we could probably talk about like all the movies in passing. So
I imagine this is gonna be like a Spider-Man episode where like the bulk is gonna be on one picture, but we're just gonna end up talking about all three because
Yeah.
we've seen all three.
Hey, and back
the
to
funny
Robert
thing is-
Zemeckis. Man, we haven't talked about him since The Walk.
shit, really?
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about one of his
I thought we
motion
did.
capture films.
Well, we talked about
Um,
Monster House, and he
yeah, I was about to say
produced
Monster
that, like
House.
Oh,
executive
Monster House,
produced, but I mean in terms of directing.
Yeah, in terms of actual directing. Yeah,
terms of
okay, that'd be
directing.
cool.
All right.
Yeah. Bobby Z. This is going to be interesting because this is, I think, one of the first episodes where not only have all of us seen it before, but we've all seen these movies together.
Well, I mean, well, no, because I was about to say we've seen some of this stuff together, but not like together before in the past.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we saw the
What do you mean?
Fred movie together, but we
Oh,
never saw
yeah,
it
yeah,
together
yeah.
before.
Yeah. Past. Yeah, that's what I meant. Not the movies that we watched together, like explicitly for the podcast. We just like watched together just because like we were just hanging out and we're like on
Yeah.
Halloween and just be like, man, Back to the Future is cool. Let's watch that movie.
Could have waited until October 15th, but that's a long
21st.
ways off. 20
October
Fuck.
21st.
Why did I say 15?
Because
2015.
2015? Yeah.
That's why. Shit.
Yeah, maybe we'll do an episode of Blade Runner 2049 when we're in our 50s. We're like, this is nothing like the movie I was lied to. It's like, I remember I watched Blade Runner in like 2019, like the day like the movie actually takes place, and I was like, we got fucking robbed.
Damn.
Actually, Blade Runner's kind of a shithole. I'm kind of glad we don't live there, but yeah. But yeah, right, word. Back to the Future.
This podcast episode has expired.
Yes, podcast episode expired. We'll take you wherever you want us to. Or is that the line? I don't fucking know.
Eat your
Whatever.
pineapples, bitches.
10 pineapple, 10.